to start the, yeah. A very good afternoon to one and all. In the last plenary session of our Atal FDP, we have the young and dynamic personality, Dr. Ramesh Parmar sir, who is the senior lecturer at BK Modi Government Pharmacy College, Rajkot. Sir has completed his BPharm and MPharm from the one of the reputed college, LM College of Pharmacy, Ahmedabad. Sir has completed his PhD from the Kutch University in pharmaceutical science. He is having 14 years of teaching and research experience. He has published 12 national and international review and research paper. In his credit, he is having a one Indian patent granted by the Indian Patent Office. He has guided 20 MPharm research project, delivered more than 10 lectures at a national and state level events. He has cleared many competitive examinations, namely Drug Inspector examination conducted by the Gujarat Public Service Commission, Government Pharmacy Lecture examination conducted by the Gujarat Public Service Commission, and GATE entrance examination. Sir, we welcome you in our Atal FDP, and the session is open for you.
Thank you, Nitik sir, for such a nice introduction. Actually, you have introduced more than what am I actually. So I'm really thankful to you. Good afternoon, partner, all the participants. Today's session, my topic is the effective question paper designing. Okay. Let us start with what internet says about our education system. You might have seen this very good tune many times. Okay. So here, examiner, evaluator is asking the animals to go through a same exam for a fair selection. Okay. And there is a famous quote by Albert Einstein that everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So for our case, it should not be the case. Actually, being an evaluator, we should keep in our mind that there is a diverse audience, or we can say diverse students which are studying under us. And nearly every 5 years, the generation changes. And well, now the era is faster. And every 5 years, the thoughts, the beliefs of the student changes. And that is why the teacher must change themselves. Now, before starting the session, let us start with something. I'm giving you an exercise over here. I'll give you some instructions. So for that, I advise you to please take a blank page and a pen and a calculator. If you are weak at a simple maths, then you will need a calculator. Otherwise, there is no need to take it. Okay. And follow all the instructions which are given in the next slide. So all the participants, please, I'll give you 2 minutes time. If it is feasible for you to take a pen and a blank paper. And once you complete it, you can speak it, or you can type a message completed. Okay. So I'll switch the slide within a while. Once I think you are ready, I'll switch the slide. You need to follow all the instructions given in the next slide. So participants, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Very good, Puneet. Thank you. So I'm switching the slide and your time starts now. Fast.
Sir, done.
Done. Very good, Puneet. Everyone, let's wait for others. Okay, done. Hari bhai, very good. So all those who have done, still is your page blank?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Hari bhai. Yes, that's good. That is good. Very good. So actually, I'm really happy that you are alert even at 12:30 after a session of 2 hours. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
that is good. That is good. Okay. So that this is what we want to impart in our students. The purpose of this exercise is to train our students to learn the things, not only to respond but to understand. Sometimes, not sometimes, but in many of instances it happens that the students are not getting the instructions properly. That not
Yes, Ramesh sir, we are not getting your voice.
Yeah,
Ramesh sir?
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry for inconvenience. Yes, yes. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Sorry, sir. So, what we need to do is we need to instruct our students to understand the situation first and then respond. Sometimes our students are responding before understanding, and in many of the exams also we are following the same. We are going through the same, that they are responding before understanding. So, first step required is learning. Actually, the story which follows approximately 20 slides is the story which is repeated many a times. It's like a marriage. Number of things have been written about the marriage. Each and everyone is discussing about happy married life, etc., etc. But no one will understand it properly unless they live it. Okay, no one will understand it properly unless they live it. And even after reading hundreds of books about happy married life, there are still divorces take place. So the same is with education. We know all good things, but there is a very thin boundary between knowing and practicing. Mind well, we know, but sometimes we switch the boundary and we move towards practical things or something which is not to be done. So for that, learning is required. We have learned these things repeatedly, but still I'm going to try one more time. Even in previous session also the same things were repeated, but still I'm going to start with that only. So Bloom's taxonomy. uh, in a teaching psychology, this taxonomy has to do a lot of things. So in 1956, Benjamin Bloom headed a group of educational psychologists and they developed a classification. Now they found that more than 90% of the test questions are only from the basic level, fundamental level, and they only emphasize on the simple recall of the information. The students only need to recall and they need not to apply any brain upon that. So they devised a taxonomy. They designed the knowledge in three domains: the cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. First, the cognitive domain. Cognizance, that is knowledge. It is related to our brain or memory. We sometimes know something, okay, but we sometimes do not put it in a practice. So knowing is not sufficient. Okay. Second is affective domain that deals with our attitude, our heart. Sometimes our teachers instruct us to do the things by heart. When we were in school, we might have heard this word thousands of times. You need to do it by heart. This poem should be by heart. So what is by heart? That is, it is in our emotions. Simply, if you look at the artists which are performing in the movies or any drama, uh, they are not only delivering the speech, but they are involving the expressions. Okay. In teaching also the same thing happens, and in learning also the same thing is required. Last is the psychomotor domain. The psychomotor domain deals with the ability of someone to perform that task physically, whether it is driving a car or it is operating a machine. or cooking of food, or swimming, or learning how to run a bicycle. Okay, so all these are related with this psychomotor domain. So in education, all these things should be blended. The student should be able to correlate each and everything, and then only the education is complete. At the same time, there are few dimensions of the knowledge. That is, it represents a range from concrete to abstract. Concrete means something which we can see. Abstract means something which we can understand. Okay, and these are four dimensions. First is the factual dimensions. That is only knowledge of facts. We know it. Second is conceptual. That is, we understand it. Third is the procedural. We know how it is done or how it comes. And metacognitive, that is strategic knowledge of these things. Now, these four things are related to each and every level of knowledge as well. For only remembering also, these four are applicable, and for creating also, these four are applicable. Okay, now, according to the Bloom's taxonomy, let us discuss the first domain, that is cognitive domain or knowledge domain. Here, the Bloom has identified 6 levels with the cognitive domain, from a simple recall or recognize facts at a lowest and evaluation as a highest. So first, knowledge. What information which we are imparting in the students, they know it. Say, I'm teaching the students today the principles of mixing. So I'll teach them there are 3 types of mixtures: positive mixtures, negative mixtures, and neutral mixtures. On second day when I come for the class, they at least know it, what it is. Second step is comprehension. They understand it. So if I ask them, what is a negative mixture? They should be able to explain it. What is a negative mixture? And what are the examples of it? So that is comprehension. Next step is application. That is, the student should be able to apply the knowledge of these positive and negative mixtures. Say, I give them 5 ml of milk and 5 ml of water. They can easily mix it. But if I'm giving them 5 ml of oil and 5 ml of water, and then I tell them to mix it, they should know that it will create a negative mixture, and I need to incorporate a third substance to make it miscible for a longer duration. So that is application of that knowledge which I've taught them. Then analysis. Once I provide them a mixture, they should be able to identify the type of the mixtures, component of the mixtures if possible, and solve any problems related to that. Next level is synthesis. That is creating something new out of that knowledge, what they have gained. And at the last, evaluation. That is, they should be able to evaluate what is presented to them. This is the old taxonomy. Okay. Now, the lower 3 things, knowledge, comprehension, and application, they are considered as the lower order thinking skills. While analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, they are considered as a higher order thinking skills or HOTS. In majority of the exams, we find that the questions are from lots only. And there are lots of the questions from the lots. Normally, approximately 20 to 30% of the questions, particularly in the technical courses, should be from HOTS, so that our students will try to learn things. Because otherwise what happens is, our brain will become like our appendix. Okay, our primitives used the appendix to digest the food, because they used to eat the raw food. Now we are eating the cooked food, so we need the appendix in a lesser extent, and that is why the size of our appendix is going on decreasing and decreasing. The same thing will happen to our students also. If we provide them more challenges, they will be built stronger. So at least your question paper should have approximately 20% weightage of the HOTS and 70 to 80% in the lots. And under lots also, all 3 components should be distributed uniformly. These are the verbs which represent them. Now, in older Bloom's taxonomy, they have used noun, that is knowledge, comprehension, application. The Bloom's taxonomy has been revised, and now the nouns have been changed to verb. Okay. So normally 80 to 90% of the questions are from the knowledge level, that is fundamental level only. This is revised Bloom's taxonomy, in which they have switched the upper two levels, that is create or synthesize has been renamed as create, and evaluate. So they are switched. Create is considered as the highest level of understanding. When you know each and everything, then and then only you will be able to create something. And they change the levels from noun to verb. Here they're using the words like remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. The meanings are more or less similar, and the levels are not changing from lots and hots, but they are interchanging only at the higher level. Okay. Now, what is remembering? It is only recalling the previously learned information. If we teach a 3-year-old baby the twinkle twinkle little star, he or she will be able to learn and recite it without knowing a single word of them. Okay, single word of that. We are also knowing number of songs, okay, from the movies, and we don't know the meanings of those words, but we can recite it. So that is only remembering. Our students also will only be able to remember like type of disease, names of drugs, type of mixtures, etc. And the verbs which are used to describe this are defines, describes, identifies, knows, labels, etc. In our question paper, if we want to ask the questions about remember level, we need to use the words like define this, list this, name this, etc., etc. Okay. Next level is understanding. Here, the students are able to understand. That is, they digest the things. For an example, the principles of UV or NMR spectroscopy, then translation, etc., etc. Once they understand, they can comprehend. They can write in a few words. Okay. Say, I have taught them a paragraph, and I want them to write this paragraph in 3 lines only. They can be able to write in 3 lines only. That is understanding. Okay. So the verbs which are used for them, comprehend, convert, defend, distinguish, etc., etc. So in our exams, we can ask the questions uh, accordingly. That give an example of a positive mixture, give an example of negative mixture, give 2 or 3 examples of this, give 2 or 3 examples of this, and that also in a somewhat twisted manner, so that they can explain or they can write on basis of their understanding. Next is applying. That is, apply the knowledge which they have gained. So, say they will be applied for they will apply their knowledge for structural elucidation. If I give them data for NMR or IR, they should be able to suggest the structure, appropriate structure for that. They should be able to differentiate. They should be able to distinguish something. They should be able to choose a proper way, etc., etc. They are application. That comes under the application part. Then analyze. That is, the student should be able to distinguish the facts and inference. They should recognize the logical fallacies in the reasoning. If they're given with a procedure, they should be able to identify some loopholes, some mistakes if they're in a procedure. Okay. The words are analyze, breakdown, etc., etc. Then evaluate. The students should be able to make judgments on the basis of the idea given to them. They should be able to select the most effective solution. They should be able to provide most effective treatment to the patient. The effective should be with respect to cost as well as safety. Okay. Simply, if we ask Google Maps that I want to travel from Rajkot to Ahmedabad, the Google will find the best way. If I want to travel within Rajkot, the Google will suggest me 3 or 4 ways, and out of that, it will suggest that this is fastest one. Okay. So what Google is doing is it is evaluating the data gathered from the previous experiences, and it suggests the best. Okay. So the students should be able to provide, evaluate the information provided to them, and they should be able to suggest something new as well. And last is creating or synthesizing something. After learning so many things, if we really want to apply them in a field, we should be able to create. For an example, Google. Google actually was a PhD project, and that is now used by millions of people for their daily needs. Facebook, that was also a research project, and during the research they have created something. So creating comes when we know, we understand, we analyze, we apply something. After following all this, we can create something. Now, affective domain. This domain actually is lacking to a greater extent in current education system. Okay. Uh, uh, Krathwohl, Bloom in 1973, they classified this affective domain. It is related to perception, to feelings, to values, and there are different levels of the affective domain, like receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and internalizing. Receiving, that is to receive the information. Now, receiving also is an optional thing. Sometimes what happens is we teach the students, but they don't learn. Okay. So let me share one joke with you. A person brought a pet bird from a bird shop, and this shopkeeper told him that I have taught the bird to speak in English. So the person was mesmerized. He paid extra for that bird, and he went home. After 2 days, he came back to the shopkeeper and told that the bird is not speaking English. The shopkeeper replied that when did I tell that he speaks English? I told that I taught him to speak English. He never learned. Okay. So in routine also, we may experience in our class that this receiving phenomena is lacking in the students. They are present physically in the class, but they are not ready to accept, ready to learn. So it is the duty of the teacher to uh, uh, promote the students or to encourage the students to learn, to listen. Once they listen, then and then only they will be able to grasp something. Second is respond. After listening, sometimes they may, sometimes they may not respond. As I'm teaching over here and I ask you the question, only 5 of you will respond. Rest, chale chene. We will get the certificate. Okay. So the responding is also a part of our cognitive, affective domain. It comes from heart. If you want to respond, we will respond. If you don't want, we will not. Okay. Ideally, responding should be required. If they are responsive, then and then only they can grasp the things. Next is valuing. They should value their teachers, their friends, their seniors, their juniors, each and everything. And the value comes from heart. Okay. Next is organizing. They should be able to organize themselves. They should be able to organize their tasks, their priorities, what to be done and what not to be done. If I ask you to read a book for an exam, which is next week, and if I advise you to read a book for your pleasure, for your enjoyment, and third option is you have to watch a movie, you need to organize your priorities. What you need to do, what are your priorities, and that also comes from the feelings. Now sometimes what happens is the students by their interest are more inclined about the leisure, the fun, and not about the learning. So it is the responsibility of the teacher to incline them towards that by using uh, the means, the tools which will help them to incline towards the teaching along with all other things as well. And next is internalizing, that is characterization. After learning all these things, say we find that some two students are by nature sincere. That is, they have internalized that sincerity. They have changed their priorities, and that is internalization. Now, part of the Bloom's taxonomy is the psychomotor domain. Here, there are two taxonomies suggested, one by Simpson and Harrow, and second is the Dwe's taxonomy. We'll discuss first the Simpson's taxonomy. They have classified this taxonomy in 7 levels: perception, set, guided response, mechanism, complex, covert or expert, adaptation, and organization. Now, let us take an example of learning how cycling. Okay, so first is perception, that is awareness. It is the ability to use sensory cues to guide a motor activity. Say the students come for first time in our laboratory, and we want to teach them titration. So what we instruct them is, you need to fill the burette. So they will fill the burette. Then we need to instruct them that you need to adjust the flow rate from the burette. So they should learn how to adjust the flow rate. Okay, so that is the ability to work in a guided manner. They should be aware how can they adjust the flow rate. What tool is used to adjust the flow rate? Which part of the burette will help them to adjust the flow rate? Second is, that is, it is readiness to act. It includes mental, physical, and emotional set, and sometimes it is considered as a mindset. Sometimes when we assign a task to students, they may be reluctant. Sometimes they will not try to do it. Sometimes they will be happy to do it. They will be eager to do it. So the student should try to learn these things, and they need to encourage or motivate the students to learn. This division is related to the responding phenomena of the cognitive domain. The affective domain. Okay. Then guided response. It is the early stage of learning complex things, which includes the imitation, trial and error. When we learned cycling, our parents used to guide us. They used to hold the backside of the cycle and they guided that you just focus on the pedals. And at that time, what our energy was involved in, only holding the handle and using the pedals. We were not looking at anything else at that time, because we were focused only on that two parts, hand and legs. So in practicals also, sometimes we demonstrate something and then we guide the students to do the same thing. Next is mechanism. They acquire the basic proficiency. Now they can handle that equipment by their own. They know how to use the UV, how to use the IR spectrophotometer, or how to use the operator tablet punching machine. So they are now having basic proficiency. They can operate it. Next is complex covert response. That is, now they're expert. Less of their energies will be involved in performing that task. Okay. Sometimes we can drive the car without sometimes looking or concentrating more on the driving side. We can talk with someone, we can talk on a call, we can listen to music, we can sing the songs, etc. At the same time, we are driving the car, and least of our energy is involved in driving the car. So at this time, we are expert in that. Okay, so the behavior is similar to the previous one, but it is having some words that is quicker or better or accurate. Next is adaptation. Here, the skills are well developed and the individual can modify the movements patterns to fit a special requirements. Sometimes during operation of a tablet machine, the students encounter that the hardness is less. So they should be able to adjust the crushing strength, hardness. If merely listening to the voice of the tablet punching, they can know that the tablets which are produced are having lesser hardness. Okay, so they can modify it. That is adaptation. And the last is the origination. They can create something new. Okay, say in Saurashtra, there is one brand which is available, that is Mitti Cool. I think you might have also heard about that, Mitti Cool. Now, before few years, the potters, they were used to only make the utensils. Now, this Mitti Cool has used the technology to create the utensils with a greater strength, because in older time, when the potters used to create the utensils, they used the hands, and the utensils were fragile. But in Mythicool, they are using compression to design the utensils. They are well shaped, and they are modifying these to even prepare the bottles which are made up of the uh, earthen materials, earthen utensils. Okay, so that is origination. How to apply that knowledge and create something new. So this everything is about the Bloom's taxonomy. Last one is the Dave's taxonomy. Here the levels are imitation, manipulation, precision, articulation, naturalization. Okay. If any participant has any question in this, they can ask. Anyone? I think you have learned a lot about this, and that's why I was a little quicker about that, and I'm not spent much time in that. Still, if you have any questions, please ask. Okay, then, if you don't have questions, let us continue with the evaluation, which is the core part which I need to discuss with you. So, why? What is the need of evaluation? So, first is proper evaluation, segregation of the students based on talent, average student not lose confidence, talented students should get satisfaction, etc., etc. These are all the purposes of examination or evaluation. Now, here I have shown you two pictures of evaluation. Testing the food. The spelling is different from our test, but still it is a test. So, can anyone say what is difference between these two tests? On a dining table also we are testing the food. The cook is also testing the food. What is difference between these two?
Sir, in the first photograph, a chef is tasting the food to ascertain or perceive whether the food is being prepared according to the requirement, according to the taste requirement of the guest.
Good.
And in the second photograph, the guest is actually eating the food, and then they will also be able to tell the taste of the food.
That is
But
good.
they are actually, as a consumer, they are having. Chef is as a professional tasting the
That
food.
is good. That is good, Puneet. Very good. So, still, you have explained it in a very, very good manner. Still, what is difference in the end result? Anyone else? Single persons versus so many. Okay, Juma. Okay, so the basic difference is when the chef tastes the food, there is still scope of improvement. But once it is served to the guest, there is no scope of improvement, and we should learn it. As a teacher, we should know, because when the student is in our hands, we should test them in such a way that based on their response, we need to improve. We need to change their perception. We need to change their knowledge level. We need to impart something new. Okay, because we are chefs. They are not the end users. Actually, their end users are industries. Their end users are the consumers, healthcare system, or the engineering system, government, whatever it is. We are not the end users. So the purpose of our testing should be the scope of improvement and not only the end result. But in many times it happens that the teachers are evaluating the students only merely to grade them, to give them results, give them marks. That is never the purpose of teaching. The purpose of teaching is testing them to improve them. And that is why our questions, our tests should be such that we can use those results to improve. Now, these are few examples. Actually, majority of our exams are conducted on the basis of pen and paper. And hope in a new education policy, we do have some other evaluations as well. But at present, we need to run the show with the pen and paper exam only. So there are few um, commonly observed mistakes present in a pen and paper exam, which I recently came across. Actually, there is no intention to offend anyone, but this should not be the case. Here, one question has been repeated twice in the same question paper. Entire question has been repeated in the same question paper with two different markings. At one place, it is carrying 6 marks. At another place, it is carrying 5 marks. This should not happen. Next thing is, it is repeatedly using the same word, explain, 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 5 times in the same question paper. One more example, here also. The same question has been repeated 2 times, resolution. And the question paper contains so many words, explain. One more, here also. If you look at the question paper, explain, 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 explain. Now, are we teaching our students only to explain? Or there is something more we want from our students? So in a question paper, you should try to avoid such mistakes, such things. Okay. Now, in MCQs also the same thing may happen. When we are having MCQ exams since last 2 years, COVID has propelled us to switch to the MCQs, online exams. In online exams or MCQ exams also, there are some problems associated, like both of them, none of them, all of above. Okay. Sometimes we provide them a clear guess. The question is, which of the following bark? So out of these options provided, only there is only one bark. Okay, rest are stem, leaf, root, etc. There is only one bark. So question itself should not provide any clue to the students for guessing, or it should not have such options like both A and B, none of above, all of above, etc. In place of this, you can use checkbox. You need to tick whatever is applicable. So if all are applicable, they will tick all. If only one is applicable, they will check one. If two, then two. Now, what factors should be considered before designing the exam? Here, I'm using the word exam because the exam can be of different type. So once the exam is on the basis of paper, we need to know the purpose. What is the purpose? The purpose may be evaluation. The purpose may be selection in interviews also. The purpose may be screening. For any purpose, whatever we are using, we need to ask the questions accordingly. And we need to know the objectives and the specifications of the course. Since last few years, the AICTE has switched or is a signatory of Washington Accord. And according to that, we are following the NBA inspections. We are following the outcome-based learning. And that is why each course is assigned the outcomes. And each course is having some objectives. So our question paper should be aligned towards the objectives and the specifications of the course. Now, what you want to assess, whether you want to assess abilities or skills or competencies. How will you assess? Whether you will use a written test or an oral test or a practical test. In pharmacy, engineering, both all are applicable. We go for written tests, we go for viva, we go for practical exams as well. Which type of questions are to be asked in that test, whether it is only objective or descriptive or blended. So, considering these factors, we need to design our paper. First is the purpose. So, type of the question paper differs with the objective of the examination. In a competitive examination, the question paper is set with the objective of screening the candidates and choosing the right ones for the particular course of job. But in university examination, objective is to assess the knowledge acquired by the student during the course. So in university exams, we are having a bound course. In screening tests, there is not a bound course, that is open. They can ask the questions from anywhere. But in university papers, we ask the questions from only defined curriculum. Specification table. Here in your syllabus, there are, say, 5 or 6 units. And according to that, you need to prepare specification tables. I think at engineering side, the universities are providing the specification tables. At pharmacy sites at present, I think university is not providing this with the specification table. So what is a specification table? Here we are dividing each unit under 3 different levels, sometimes 4. Sometimes we are using the 4th level as well, analysis. But normally we work with the 3 levels, that is remember, understand and apply. And we assign marks to each skill of the level. Now, this specification table as shown over here, it is showing that unit ABC should carry 8 marks from the remember, 13 marks from the understand, and 5 marks from the application level. So your question should be in such a way that they are assigning 8 marks to remember level, 13 marks to understand level, and 5 marks to application level. Mind well, this specification table is written on a paper and not on a stone. So there is always scope of changing this specification table based on the needs. That is, when the student is in first year, obviously we will assign more marks to remember and understand level and less marks to the application level. Then gradually this will go on switching from remember to more about the application level as the student progresses in his education. That is, the final year students should have more weightage in the application part and least weightage in the remember part. So periodically the specification table should be revised. Now, designing question paper is an art, so we need to avoid the WH questions. Sometimes we ask the students, what is something? Okay, what is spectroscopy? So students can write any answer. Spectroscopy is a method of analysis using the radiation. Okay, and that will not give you the proper answer. So try to avoid WH questions. Then avoid monotonous questions. As I've shown you 3 question papers, in all of them, the word explain was repeated number of times. So it makes the paper monotonous. We need to avoid those monotonous. Then for remember level, use the words like define, enlist, identify, enumerate, name, etc., etc. For understand, we need to use the words like differentiate, classify, compare. That is the words which are given in the Bloom's taxonomy. We need to use them. For apply level, we need to use the words like justify, explain with reason, suggest, calculate, determine, etc., etc. So your question paper should be variety. The student at each question should feel challenged, and it's a human behavior. We like challenges. Okay, obviously it's a human psychology. We like the challenges, and this is why the gambling is oldest game, oldest interest of the people, because there are chances, there are probability of losing as well as winning. If we provide the gamblers with the probability that you will win 100%, they will eventually quit gambling, because it will no more be interesting for them. If a gambler wins 100 games in a row, he will definitely quit the gambling, because it is no more interesting to them. So when there is a challenge, it is interesting. So your question paper which you design should be challenging to the student. And at each question, they should feel challenged. Your words should change at each and every question, so that they think something different. They will, at the same time, it will make the student alert. In previous question, it was classify. Now it is compare. Next question, it is explain. Next question, it is suggest or calculate. So it will avoid the monotony in a question paper, and that will maintain the interest of the student during exam also. Mind well, during exam also. We have seen the students during exam also, sometimes they feel, have nathi lakhu, I don't want to write now. Even though they know, they quit writing just because they are bored of the exam. And this most commonly happens in the last paper. You might, if you have observed very carefully, during the entire exam of 5 or 6 papers, the last paper, the students will leave the exam hall very early. Okay, as in my lecture, as it is the last lecture, I hope you will also leave early. But in exams, I have felt this. Many of the students leave the exam room early. Bas kantadi gaya. That's good. That's all. So, in any exam, examiner, the paper setter should take care of that, and that is an art. Now, the types of questions: the written test or pen and paper test or practical test. There are mainly or three types of test which we encounter. In technical education, we go through all of them. Okay. So we'll emphasize more on pen and paper test. So the pen and paper test also can be of two types, verbal and visual. In verbal, we are using the words. That is, the questions are there. And in visual, we are using the graphics. We provide the students with a diagram and we tell them to name the parts or explain the mechanism or identify the part, etc., etc. So it can be verbal or visual. In chemistry, we are providing them with the structures, that what will be the absorption maxima in UV for a given structure. So students will apply the Woodward-Fisher rule and they will calculate the lambda max for that compound. So that is a visual question, a kind of visual question. Then categories of the questions, based on the type of expected response from the students, we can broadly classify question into mainly two categories. First is the select type and second is the supply type. The select type is mainly applicable in the objective type, the objective type of the exams. That is select from drop down box or MCQs, etc. In supply type, the students have to provide the information, supply the information. Now, the supply type questions are subjective, essay, free response questions, etc., etc. While select type questions are objectives or drop down box or recognition of the items. In anatomy practicals, we go for spotting. In pharmacognosy practicals also, we go for spotting. We provide them with the objects and they just need to write their name or their PS or CC or family, or in pharmacology their function, etc., etc. Then now on the basis of the questions, the subjectivity changes. Okay, as shown in this figure, least subjectivity. Subjectivity is the difference of opinion. If the questions are of completion of sentence, or short answer, or structured questions, or essay, or improved essay, as we go towards the essay type, the subjectivity increases. That is, you will find vast variety from person to person. Now, for a fair evaluation, or question paper should provide the students with the opportunity to explain themselves. And in such kind of exams or questions, they are free to write many things based on their understanding. So what we are doing is we are providing them the opportunity to express themselves, and that is also sometimes required. In case of select type questions, that is true, false, or matching, or MCQs, or assertion reason, there is no subjectivity at all. They are provided with the fixed responses, and they need to select from those given options only, or they need to feed only a single answer. So there is least subjectivity. Now, the subjectivity is a two-edged sword. બે ધારી તલવાર છે. Because if the student has not prepared well and the exam is of select type only, there are more chances that the student will not clear the exam, because the marks are awarded in all or none phenomena. Either they are awarded marks or not at all, because if the answer is correct, they will get the marks. If incorrect, they will not get the marks. Sometimes we are also imparting negative marking system, so they will lose the marks for incorrect answer as well, and hence there are more chances the students may fail in that exam. But if we want to the level to be at a middle or lower, the descriptive answers are providing the flexibility for the evaluators as well, that they can award the marks for the creativity of the students. Sometimes they are writing something in a different manner. When an evaluator, particularly it happens for the internal assessment, an evaluator is the teacher himself. When he teaches something in the class, he expects the students to reply with the same things which he or she has taught. Ideally, this should not be the scenario, because now the knowledge is available in open domain, and students can learn from anywhere. So they should have freedom to express anything which they have learned from any source, and not only from what you have taught. So in case of supply, they can feed something which they know, which they not have been taught, but still they know, and that is why a flexibility for them. So subjectivity increases in case of the supply type questions, and particularly in essay type. Now, subjectivity in marking of different questions, as I said, in marking there is zero subjectivity, that is subjectivity with respect to the evaluator. When select type questions are there, that is MCQs or matching or true or false, there is nothing in the hands of the evaluator, because if the answer is correct, the evaluator must award the marks. If answer is incorrect, the evaluator has no right to award the marks. So it is totally free or fair. As it switches to the essay type questions or short answers or higher level, there are more chances of subjectivity. That is, when the question papers are evaluated at the university level, the university assigns the question papers to number of evaluators. Now, for the same question, different evaluators may assign different marks, and it is commonly observed. For the same answer, one evaluator is awarding 6 out of 6. In the same answer, another evaluator will only award 4 marks out of 6 marks, because it is highly subjective. One evaluator is completely satisfied with the answer the student has provided. Another is not satisfied with the answer the student has provided, and he or she wants something more to be added in the answer. So, in case of supply type questions, there are more chances of differences in the result when the same answer sheet has been evaluated by different evaluators. And this is also commonly observed in the university exams, that the students go for the reassessments, and those students who have applied for the reassessment, nearly 30 to 40% of the students clear the subject, after reassessment, because the evaluation is purely subjective. Supply type, these are the questions where the students are required to supply the answers. They are free to respond in the way they feel fit, and the questions are so-called subjective questions. That is completion of the simple equations, or short answers, or numerical problems, or structured questions, or restricted response essay questions, or extended response or traditional essay questions. That is open-ended. In restricted response essay questions, we are restricting the students to write the answers. Say, I'm asking the students that classify the systems for microbial count and write a note on viable count. So I'm restricting them to write a note only on viable count, not all the counting methods. Okay, so this is a kind of restricted response essay. Sometimes we ask them that enlist the ideal characteristics of analytical method and explain accuracy and precision in detail, or classify the antipsychotic drugs and write a note on benzodiazepines. So these are the restricted response essays. We are restricting them to write on a short thing. Open-ended questions are write a note on antipsychotic drugs, write a note on sedatives and hypnotics. So student can write anything. Then these are the types of questions in which the students are required to select or recognize the correct or best answer from the answer. In case of select type questions, only one of the answer is correct, and the alternative is from the alternative which are given. And these questions are also called objective questions or objective items. For an example, true, false, or matching, or MCQs, or multiple response, or assertion reason. Sometimes, in case of competitive exams, they are asking the questions that statement A and statement B are given. The statement A is assertion, statement B is reason, and the options are given. Only assertion is correct, reason is incorrect. Only reason is correct, assertion is incorrect. Both reason and assertion are correct, but the assertion is not correct. The reason is not correct reason for the given statement. And both assertion and reason are correct, and this is the proper reason for this phenomena. So, in such cases, the students will need to understand each and everything, but they can provide only one response. In case of supply questions, we can ask the questions like completion format. That is, if the pressure of an ideal gas decreases while its temperature is kept constant, the volume increase or decrease. Or we can supply the key change. What change you expect, whether it will decrease or increase. So it is nothing but the application of the ideal gas law, PV is equal to nRT. So using that, they can supply the answer, complete the sentence. Then, how does the volume of an ideal gas change if its pressure is decreased, keeping the temperature constant, whether it is decrease or increase? Then completion and simple questions. For example, identification of the labels. Here, a diagram has been given, which depicts A, B, C, and D. The student should be able to identify the diagram and name the diagram. What is AB? What process is there in BC? What process is there in CD? What is in DA? So they just need to label. Next is sequence. In this, objects, events, or observations are given in a random sequence, and you require the students to put them in a proper sequence. Say, removal of electron from the orbit, excitation of electron to higher orbit, and supply of energy to the atom. So students should know that when we supply the energy to the atom, the electrons will get excited first, and once we apply the more energy, they will get out of the orbit, and that is called ionization. So first we supply the energy, that is first stage, second is excitation, and third is the removal. So the students should be able to order them, sequence them properly. This kind of questions can be asked in the MCQs, that what is the proper sequence of these events, and we need to provide with the 1 2 3 4 4 3 2 1 2 3 1 4 etc etc. Now, points to remember while constructing the questions. Questions should be so worded that the answer is brief and definite. That should not be open. in many of the exams, we find that the questions are of such a type that students can write anything. It should not be there. Or sometimes the students can get confused. For an example, I asked the questions that students should write not on CMC. Now, the CMC has been taught to the students in different subjects. In pharmaceutical engineering, they know it as a critical micelle concentration. So they will write about that. In pharmaceutical technology or industrial pharmacy, they know as carboxymethyl cellulose, and they can write about that in as a carboxymethyl cellulose. Then DOE. So they're studying it as a design of experiment or doctrine of equivalence. Okay, with respect to patent, it is doctrine of equivalence. With respect to experimental design, it is design of experiments. So they can write anything. So your question should be brief and to the point, so that your answer is definite and student should not write something different. Okay. In completion questions, usually there should be one blank only, and that should be placed towards the end of the statement. If it is possible, your blank should be at the end. Sometimes you can place the blank at middle, but it will increase the chances of guessing. So avoid unintended clues in the question leading to incorrect answer. As I have shown in one of the MCQ, which of the following bark can be used as an anti-malarial? So that is a clue, bark, because out of the given options, there is only one bark. So unintended clues in the question should be avoided. Sometimes we are asking which of the following are types of a mixer: Yukon blender, double call blender, both of them and none of them. So our question itself contains are. So students know that it is a plural and both should be a correct answer. Okay. So we should try to avoid this unintended clues. Once we draw the question paper, we should read it twice so that we can come to know that we are missing out over here. Then word the question as concisely as possible without losing specificity or response. Your question should not be too lengthy. Write a note on something with respect to this. This not should not be a question. Your question should be precise. You should be concise. It should use minimum words, and that should be specific. Supply type questions like short answer questions. In such type of questions, teacher can expect his students to give a short response, and the response could be a sentence or a few sentences, a diagram, a numerical, or combination of all these. Now, relatively more freedom of the response with respect to the completion questions is given to the students. They are specific in nature and demands a precise answer, and objectivity is there to a greater extent. When we are asking the short, that at that time they are more specific. For an example, I ask them explain the refractive index, or give importance of refractive index with respect to the analysis of the sugars. So they can precisely answer to the question. They are easiest to construct. We can construct these questions easily because we can find n number of questions of this type from a single topic. If I'm teaching CVS, cardiovascular system, I can find 15 questions from a page which are short answer type. Okay, merely by rearranging the sentences, we can change the supply which we want, which we intend. Then since it is a supply type, probability of guessing is eliminated. In case of MCQs, there are always chances of guessing. In case of true and false, always there is 50% chance that whatever tick will be correct. Okay, whatever you tick, whether you state is a false, whether you state is a true, it is correct. So in such cases, we need to modify the questions. Okay. The examples are define and explain active immunity, giving 2 examples. So here the student have to define and explain active immunity, and he or she need to give 2 examples. Then explain the relationship between shear stress and shear rate for plastic materials. I've limited for plastic materials only. So they need to plot a diagram. They need to provide a diagram, and then they need to explain. Okay, give 3 points of difference between bacteria and virus. Here I've limited to 3 points. Sometimes when we ask about the differences, the student start writing from a very silly points. When we are restricting that you need to provide only 3 points, we, while teaching, should instruct the students that when you are asked about this and you need to supply only 3 differences or 2 differences, which should be given priority, which should be there in your on your answer sheet. Okay, so we are restricting them. Then classify vaccines on the basis of types of microorganisms. Here, only classify the vaccines on the basis of types of microorganism, not on the type any other type. Clear? So, on the basis of the types of microorganism, the vaccines can be viral vaccines or bacterial vaccines or any other. Clear? Otherwise, we can classify the vaccines as monovalent, simple vaccines, polyvalent vaccines, mixed vaccines, etc., etc. So, then modified true false type. Here, you can give a number of statements and ask the students to choose whether it is true or false. That is, you can then ask them to justify their choice. Sometimes you can write comment. Virus is a non-living organism. So for commenting, first the student has to write whether the given statement is correct or incorrect. Once they find that it is correct, they need to explain why it is correct. They need to provide the logic behind selecting that answer. If they say that is incorrect, they need to provide the logic behind selecting that incorrect. So that is called modified true false. If you provide the students to ask the students to write the questions like this comment, definitely you will find in your internal exams that approximately 60% students will leave the question. They are not ready to accept this challenge, and rest of the 40 to 50% which have attended this question, you'll find that majority of them will answer it correctly, mind well, correctly, because they accept the challenge, they know the answer, and they try to answer it. So when you want to segregate the students on the basis of their abilities, this kind of challenging questions must be there. Your question paper in toto should be such that the students which are at the lower level of the knowledge, that is which we consider as a weak students or slow learners, they should be able to answer this question paper up to the mark, that is they can easily qualify the exam. But at the same time, the sharp students of your class should not think that the question paper was very easy and anyone can secure 100 out of 100 or 90, more than 90 marks. So upper 10% should be very, very challenging, and only those students who have really sincerely worked hard, they will be able to answer that questions. And in such cases, this type of questions will help a lot. Then functions. In this, the students may be required to identify the parts of the given diagram and write the functions of each. So you can insert an image and you can ask the students to write the parts of that, write the names of that part and functions of that part. You can only arrow mark. Clear? Then structured questions. The structured question is a collection of interrelated short answer questions in a particular content area. These short answer questions through the interrelated are, though they are interrelated, they are independent of each other. The questions can be broadly classified as the interpretative or structured essay. Interpretative means they need to answer, they need to interpret something. And structured essay, that is, they are provided with the content, that is some keywords, and they need to write the essay on the basis of that. Then MCQs, they have many advantages, and at present we prefer them more. So first is more content is covered because we can ask the MCQs from anywhere. So entire syllabus can be covered. Then easy scoring, because we just need to score yes, right, then full marks, wrong, then no marks. Then high objectivity and reliability. Here, this each and every student will provide their own answer, and that is why it is highly objective and reliable, remarkably good for low abilities. When we want only the students to remember, at that time this can be very good, because we only need to recall the information. Then it is good for diagnostic purpose. We need to check whether the students have actually learned or not. So during our periodic tests which we conduct in our class, we need to use this. Then multiple choice items can test complex learning outcomes as well. Sometimes we can design the questions in which they need to think more, but there are some disadvantages as well. For an example, development of good item is difficult. We need to spend a lot of time in drawing the question paper with the MCQs, and it's a time consuming process. And second is, it is prone to guessing. The students can easily guess the answer, correct answer. Sometimes it is possible, or sometimes they only tick all the A or all the B or all the C, and they may clear the exam. Sometimes it happens. So sometimes in IITs, deliberately the examiners set a question paper with majority of options as either A or B, or the entire question paper without any C or any D. Okay, they deliberately omit an entire line, so that if any student is marking all A or all B or all C, will get nothing. Suggestions: the STEM should be meaningful in itself and should present a definite problem. It should be free from irrelevant material. Negatively stated STEM should be rarely used, and alternatives should be grammatically consistent with the STEM. The question, whatever you are providing, this should be grammatically consistent with the STEM, and the item should have only one correct answer or clearly best answer. If I've given example in GPET 2020, I think, yeah, last year, there was a question that which of the what are the applications or uses of the HPMC, hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose, and in the answers there were two correct options, one as a film former and second as a binder. So there was a mistake by the examiner, and the students challenged that question, and at the end that question was cancelled by the NTA. So in a national level exam also, sometimes it happens by mistake that the examiners gives two correct options, and the NTA needs to cancel that question at the end. Okay, so your answer should have only one correct answer, clearly based answer. Okay, then all distractors should be plausible. That is, distractors are the incorrect answers which we have placed to distract the students from the correct answer. So the student should not differentiate easily merely by looking at the question that these are incorrect. So all the distractors which you have placed, they should be plausible. They should be practically convincing to the student that it can also be a correct answer. Okay, then verbal associations, that is irrelevant clue, should be avoided. As I said, sometimes the students can get the clue from the grammar in the question paper itself. Is, are, okay, plurals, singulars. So this kind of verbal irrelevant clues should not be there in a question. Then length should not provide clues to the answer. Sometimes the answers are too lengthy, and that itself provides the clue that this will only be correct answer. You might find many times that the students can only guess the answer by looking at the options without even reading them, because this is the longest one, this is the correct answer. So length of your question answer should not provide the clue. Then alternatives, none of these or all of these should be avoided in case of the MCQs. And correct answer should appear at each position. Ideally, correct answer should appear at each position. Because if the student, by looking at the paper, knows 4 correct answers, and he doesn't know the answer of 2 questions, and he finds that 4 correct answers are only C, definitely he will go for C for rest of the 2 questions as well. Even though he doesn't know the correct answer, he will go for the C because he thinks that this 4 are C, the rest 2 will also be C. So your correct answer should appear at each position. Guessing. Guessing can be avoided by increasing the number of options, by increasing the length of the test. We can provide more questions so that they will not get the time for guessing. Then increasing the plausibility of the distractors. Then designing items of appropriate difficulty level. If we design the items of appropriate difficulty, there will be less chances of the guessing. We give them logical we give them logical possibilities, and then they will they will try to find the correct answer, then providing sufficient time only. Sometimes we can keep the questions also time bound, that you need to answer this question within this time. So we are only providing sufficient time for that question only, and at the end, if he or she is not able to answer that question will be skipped. Then motivating the students to not to guess and try to read, because sometimes the students believe that merely by guessing we can pass the exam. Every year in our college we experience that when the GPAT results are declared, 1 or 2 students are qualifying the exam, which are unbelievable to everyone. And when we ask them, they simply ask, "Sir, I've marked it randomly." And even after randomly marking, they are qualifying the exams. So the other students will get motivated towards the wrong side. They will try to guess. We should motivate the students that it will not happen each and every time, and you should work hard, and by giving proper instructions. During, if you are conducting the exam, you should give them proper instruction. That is, each question is having only 1 correct answer, or the student need to select the most appropriate answer. Sometimes all the answers may be correct, or more than one answer may be correct, but the students need to select most appropriate answer. So uh, sometimes we need to provide them. Now we need to take care about the desired outcomes. What outcomes of the course are desired? uh, since last few years, universities are providing the course outcomes. Say for pharmaceutics 1 of PharmCM 1, the outcome is, upon completion of this course, the student should be able to know the history of profession, understand the basics of different dosage forms, understand the professional values, and preparation of various dosage forms. So we need to ask the questions from know domain, from understand domain, and from prepare domain. So our questions should be matching with our outcomes. Now, if you look at the outcomes of anatomy: explain, describe, identify, perform, and appreciate. So your question should also be in accordance with these outcomes, that up to what extent or what things they need to perform, what things they need to be able to explain, what things they need to be they need to be able to describe, and accordingly you need to design your question paper. This is the outcome of the 6th semester industrial pharmacy. Over here they should be able to formulate. So your questions should be such that they are provided a chance to formulate something, to suggest the formulation for something. Okay. This question paper is also from the GTU university only, and it is, I think it is near to ideal, because here you will find less repetition and they used majority of the keywords. Comment the following, and they have given 3 comments. What are clean rooms? And discuss. Write a note on FFS, so that those students who have only read, they are only at the remember level. they can write. Then write importance of the following. So the students need to write the importance by analyzing stabilizer, preservatives, and vehicles. This is a limited response. Then explain in brief. Only you need to explain in brief. Describe the evaluation. Okay. Give the ideal requirements. Classify the routes. Explain. So here the questions are near to ideal. Some good questions, according to my belief, should be like this. In a higher classes, that plan a treatment for a patient age 75, diabetic and hypertensive, and it is affected by COVID-19. So your students should be able to look at each and every perspective. He is diabetic, he is hypertensive, he is geriatric, and he is affected by the COVID-19. So what treatment, what line of treatment should be given to him? So the student should not haphazardly prescribe them the vitamin C tablets, because the vitamin C tablets, you should know that they are formulated with this glucose, sugars. They also contain sugars. So it may increase the diabetes. It may worsen the condition. He is hypertensive. So the some of the drugs may affect the hypertension. Accordingly, the student should be able to suggest the treatment line. Then suggest a suitable dosage form and formulation for newly discovered API, which is having poor solubility, good permeability, is liable to acid, and having dose of 50 milligram. So the student should apply his knowledge of BCS classification, his stability of the drugs, how to prevent or bypass the gastric acid, and what you need to do for this dose. Then Rauwolfia powder is suspected to be adulterated. Suggest suitable method to detect the type of adulterants. The student should be able to know which adulterant should be present or can be present in the Rauwolfia powder. And alternatively, he should be able to, accordingly, he should be able to suggest this should be detected. Then give outline for assay of a combination dosage form having 3 API. One is having lambda max around 275, alkaline in nature. Second having lambda max around 355, alkaline in nature. And third having no absorption in UV visible region, and it is acidic in nature. So the student should be able that one drug should be analyzed by acid-base titration, rest two should be analyzed by UV visible spectrophotometry and using derivative spectroscopy. Then suggest a structure of a compound having molecular formula C3H6O, showing single peak in NMR spectroscopy. Only one peak. We are not given any value of the peak, but still the student will be able to devise, provide the structure that it is acetone only, CH3COCH3, because all the hydrogens are equivalent. Okay. So if we as an examiner, we as a teacher ask such questions, definitely after 2 or 3 years, students will try to learn such things. There will be a clear message from the seniors, from previous question papers, that the students need to learn these things. That eventually lead to change in the evaluation system. So this is the answer to the first image which I have shown. Clear? So we need to break this barrier. Everyone should be able to climb the tree. Everyone should have equal opportunity. Okay. At whatever height they can climb, that depends on its ability. The monkey can climb to the highest twig, but at least the fish should crawl and should touch the leaves. Okay. Penguin should at least touch the leaves or climb the leaves. So our evaluation system should be such that it is providing equal opportunities to each and everyone. With this, I'm thankful to, from the bottom of my heart, to team ARCP and especially Dr. Netik for providing me this opportunity. Team BK Modi for valuable inputs. My respected guru, Dr. MC Goel, who is always a source of inspiration for me. All my teachers, my parents, Almighty, and all the participants for patient listening. At the end, knowing is not enough. We must apply, and willing is not enough. We must do. In our Hindu mythology, there is a saying, there is a proverb that Ravan wanted to build a staircase till the heaven, and he wanted to convert the entire sea to the sweet water, that is potable water, but he was unable. So only willing is not sufficient. We should act in that direction. Thank you all the participants.
Thank you, Ramesh sir. Now the session is open for the interaction with the speaker. If any participants want to interact with the Dr. Ramesh sir, then the session is open.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
is guessing problem is solution is minus marking? We
Pardon?
involve the paper setting.
Pardon, ma'am.
Guessing problem, our solution is minus marking.
Yeah, one of the solution can be minus marking, because by minus marking we are actually avoiding, or we are actually preventing the students from attending all the questions. Okay, so that is one of the way of avoiding. And in that also, ma'am, if you find in normal competitive exams, they are for, which are for selection to a some post, the weightage of the minus marking is higher. In GPAT, we are having 1/4 weightage for the minus marking. In competitive exams, they are providing 1/3 marking, 1/3 negative marking. Okay, so truly that's correct. That is, negative marking is also one of the way of avoiding the guessing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else?
Yes, please.
Sir, sir, with the current situation from last 2 years of pandemic, the mode of exams or assessment is mainly through online or MCQ exam.
Yes.
So my question is it possible to make the MCQ exam a little bit more, you can say, application oriented rather than just asking for the knowledge base?
Yes, sir. No, definitely it must be actually. I strongly believe that it must be. In MCQ exams, the evaluators or examiners should put some questions up to approximately 30 to 40 marks that the students cannot find the answer by just copying and pasting that answer in a Google, that question in a Google. If you're building the MCQ exam in a Google form, sometimes you find that Google itself suggests the correct answer. Okay, if Google suggests you the correct answer for that question, I personally advise you to delete that question from your question paper, that MCQ from your question paper. Your questions should be such that student need to apply their knowledge, and just merely by copying that answer and pasting in a Google, they will find the answer. That type of question should be avoided in MCQ exams.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pavna madam.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Pavna ma'am. Naitik sir, you need to unmute them. Pavna ma'am,
Bhavna ma'am.
do you want to ask something?
No, sir, no.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to all the participants and the speaker, especially to the Dr. Ramesh Parmar sir. You have covered the many points for the effective question paper designing. I just want to share something about the Dr. Ramesh sir to the audience, that he is in the sense of the teacher, he is the good teacher. Because of why? He has to check his ability. He has given the drug inspector exam. He cracked the exam. He was selected in the drug inspector post, but he refused to join that post because he want to give something to the community as a teacher. So I really appreciate that efforts to the sir. Sir, you really give us lots of knowledge how to design the question paper and what we need to avoid. That's really helpful. So we are very much thankful, sir, to give your valuable time for this FDP.
Thank you, Nitik sir. Thank you. It's so kind of you that you are using such good words for me, and I'm heartily thankful to you for providing with the opportunity to interact with such a interesting audience. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you, Nitik sir.
Kindly, if you permit, then we can take a snap with the participant.
Yes, sir. Should I turn on my camera?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Wait a minute, sir. I need to 1 minute. You need to wait for a minute.
Sir, I think we cannot turn on our camera because that option is deactivated.
Yeah, yeah, ma'am.
Especially
I'm
at
going
my
to active. Yeah,
Okay,
now
okay, sir.
you will be able to turn on your camera, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Am I visible?
Yes, Ramesh, sir.
Wait a minute, Nitik sir. Actually, there is a problem with my camera, so I'm joining from my mobile phone.
Yeah, yeah, no issue, sir.
It will take 1 or 2 minutes. Actually, it shows connection is setting up.
I have not
sir,
sent the
yeah,
session
please.
14 presence link, so be with me because I want to say something. Because as a teacher, I know I have not sent the session 14 link for the attendance.
Yes, sir. Please.
Kindly turn on your camera, Ramesh, sir.
Yeah, I've turned on, sir.
Sir, it's not visible. It's showing your image only on the desktop.
I've went through two devices. You can find, I think, in another device. I'll leave from first one so that I think you will be able
Sir,
to.
he is
નૈતિકભાઈ વિઝિબલ છે રમેશભાઈનો ફોટો
yes,
Yes.
he's visible to me. Yeah.
બરાબર છે.
Okay. Yeah, right now Haribhai is visible.
Okay. Am I visible, Nitik sir? Now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, take on this name. So I request to the speaker kindly join the valedictory program at 2:30.
Shall I leave now, Nitik sir?
Yes, sir. You can, sir. Yes, sir.